Howdy, Iron Horse fans, and welcome to the Iron Horse Roundup. In this episode, we are going to be exploring the Oklahoma Railway Museum in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. This is the first episode to take place in the state of Oklahoma, and definitely won't be the last, as the main finale of this series will come soon. But in the meantime, let's focus on the fine equipment at this railroad museum in Oklahoma City. The Oklahoma Railway Museum features 10 different locomotives, 10 passenger cars, and numerous other rolling stock and maintenance of way equipment from different railroads, including the Frisco, the Santa Fe, and the Rock Island. The museum also has an operating excursion train, but unfortunately I was there on the weekend they don't operate, so maybe the next time I'm at this museum I can get it in action. But there will be a special treat at the end of the episode, so stay tuned after I have gone through the museum's collection of rolling stock. Let's start with my obvious favorite of the collection, Santa Fe number 643, a 280 consolidation steam locomotive. Built in 1879 by Hinckley with a 440 wheel configuration, much to my surprise. At the time, it was numbered ATSF number 73 and named H.C. Hardin. In 1897, it was rebuilt to a 280 wheel configuration and renumbered ATSF number 933 before being renumbered again to 643, which it still remains to this day. Robert, how surprised are you to find out that this locomotive actually dates back to the Old West?
Well, from looking at the boiler in the inside of the cab, how deep the firewall is, I could guess that, but I had no idea that it used to be a 4-foot.
Me neither. When I did the research for this locomotive for this episode, I was surprised too. When I was at the museum, I had no idea it was built that early in time. Very cool. Moving on to the other of the two steamers featured at the museum.
I always thought this little dude kind of looks like Thomas. Might just be the paint scheme.
Well, not only the paint scheme, but also the wheel configuration. Just like Thomas, this little tank engine is also an 060. Built originally in 1942 by the most famous of the companies that make small locomotives, H.K. Porter, the original owner was the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. The locomotive was eventually sold to Oklahoma Gas and Electric, who used it at the Horseshoe Lake Power Plant in Hurrah, Oklahoma for switching coal cars around. Well, that's all the steam locomotives at the museum. Now to start off with the diesels, with my favorite diesel of the museum. This F9A was built by the General Motors Company in September of 1954 with the builder's plate number 19,741. The original owner was the Northern Pacific Railway Company, who designated the unit as road number 7003-D. When the Northern Pacific merged into the Burlington Northern Railroad, the number was changed to 814. This unit was never a Frisco locomotive, but it was repainted to Frisco colors when donated to the museum. This is one of their excursion locos that operates the excursion trains every first and third weekend of the month. Unfortunately, I was there on the fourth weekend of the month.
So basically, the F9 Frisco is a fake engine. That's dumb.
Yeah, I don't know why they repainted it into that, but still, it looks good in Frisco colors. Next up on the museum roster, Santa Fe 90, an EMD FP45, and the first of its class. Built in December 1967 as Santa Fe number 100. Right off the assembly line, number 100 and its sister, number 102, had the honor of leading the record-breaking inaugural run of the westbound Super C, a high-priority 79-mile-per-hour freight train from Chicago to Los Angeles in January of 1968. One of its sister engines, number 108, the last of the FP45s built, resides in Paris, California at the Southern California Railway Museum, where I volunteer at, and in operating condition.
So Oklahoma got the first of the class and California got the last of the class. Go figure.
Indeed. Yep. Next up is Milwaukee Road number 615, an SW1200 switcher locomotive built by EMD in 1954 as Milwaukee Road 1638, but was later numbered to its present number 615. The locomotive was retired and sold in 1983 to Chrome Crankshaft. It was then resold to the U.S. Navy and numbered USN 65,627. It was later transferred to the U.S. Army and became number 4649. The locomotive was declared surplus and was purchased by the Oklahoma Railroad Museum in 2017, where it was repainted in 2020 in its original identity as Milwaukee Road number 615 and is currently in active running condition. Next up, Rock Island 743. This RS1 switcher was built by Alco in 1943. Not much info was found about this locomotive, but the original owner was obviously the Rock Island Railroad. However, many railroads owned this locomotive over the years. It was donated in the year 2000 to the Railroad Museum and repainted to its original appearance. Behind the Milwaukee Road switcher is 301, a 45-tonner built by General Electric in 1941 for the U.S. Army. The locomotive was rebuilt in 1982. Previous owners included the U.S. Army at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Dodge City Ford and Buckland Railroad, and Vulcan Chemicals, which donated the locomotive in the year 2000 to the museum. It is currently in operating condition and has been the museum's main switching locomotive for many, many years. Next up is Missouri, Kansas, and Texas number 48. This engine was built in 1952 by General Motors Electromotive Division as U.S. Army number 2034. It saw service in Korea during the war and was rebuilt at the Hill Air Force Base in 1987, then stationed at the Army Ammunition Plant in McAlester, Oklahoma, before transferring to Fort Sill, Oklahoma in 1992. Sometime after being donated to the Railway Museum, the locomotive was repainted in MKT colors by volunteers and was also renumbered as number 48 and is currently in active condition. Next up is locomotive number 1, built in 1954 as a Jeep 9 by EMD as Illinois Central Railroad number 9038. It was rebuilt by Illinois Central as part of their GP10 program to overhaul the old GP7s, GP9s, and so on, and was rebuilt in 1967 as GP10 number 8038. In 1984, it was sold to the Chattanooga Industrial Railroad, which served paper mills in southwestern Georgia, becoming CIRR number 1. Number 1 was later transferred to a paper mill in Muskogee, Oklahoma, before being donated to the Oklahoma Railway Museum in 2020. Locomotives still not featured on the website include Burlington Junction Railway 701, built in 1968, originally for a railroad in Oregon. This SD40, number 156 of the Pan Am Railway. This unidentified Alco switcher. And its most modern and newest piece, BNSF 1205, a hydrogen experimental locomotive. There was also a Santa Fe diesel in the shop, but it was being worked on and couldn't get very good pictures of it. Normally I don't cover railroad cars themselves, but this was just too interesting to pass up. What appeared to be a line of articulated hoppers, built in the same fashion as articulated well cars. that you see hauling containers on freight trains today. The museum has a lot of other very cool features and exhibits, but now is the time for me to show you what I've been waiting to show you all, a train layout in a passenger car. Well, that concludes this episode. To learn more about the Oklahoma Railway Museum, go to its website, oklahomarailwaymuseum.com. May your lights be green on the high iron.
And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.